Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here. We are almost there, everyone. We are a mere. I was telling John I had all these plans for the show, had everything. I was gonna have an hour today where I could sit down, plan out the show. We are gonna have a nicely well together show. It's not going to be the usual crazy, all over the place type show that maybe you guys love, but hey, I like a little organization. Didn't happen. So I was going to calculate how many days there are till the MLS season. 22 plus what 5 or so 27. So we're less than 30 days. Somewhere in that range, less than 30 days away from the start of the MLS season. Hopefully things go well for DC United. We get into some listener questions and maybe a little bit of angst. But before I can get that, John, I will ask my usual question of how you were doing. I know you've had a bit of a rough week, and condolences, my friend.
I appreciate
as
it. I appreciate it, and I wanted to also use the. I just want to say thank you for people who have been very nice to me. I lost my dog last week after 12 years of having him in my house. You probably have seen him on the show over my shoulder, on the floor, on the bed, sitting on my feet, making noise, pulling cables out. We thought we lost him like 2 weeks ago, and he rebounded all the way, and then he did not anymore, and that's what happens with old dogs. So rough week. Feeling like maybe I'm turning around a little bit, but it's I've been told that it will just kind of suck for quite some time. So thanks for anybody who said, and to you and Brian and anybody who has said something nice in the last week as I've been going through it. And hopefully next week will have to be better. So I feel like I can answer that question, and maybe not. Don't read the news, and maybe it'll be fine. Maybe I'll start reading books. I'll start reading like fiction books that are pleasant. How was your week, Ted? Was your weekend all right?
My weekend was okay. I will.
Are you back to ref? Not yet, obviously.
Not yet. No, actually, I will be reffing on Saturday though. They've got some games. I don't know how cold it's going to be, so we'll see how enjoyable that's going to be. I against my will, I am turning 34 tomorrow. So
hey, I did well. How about that? Happy birthday, Ted!
Happy birthday. So I had some folks came down for a small little visit, and then mostly just relaxed. I had work-related stuff. I had to work overnight, so I was like not in the mood for doing anything on a Saturday night after that. It's like I went to see my parents, and then I sat down, and I was like, "You want to go out? You want to go do something for your birthday?" And I'm like, "No, I'm dragging a little bit today."
Did you say 34?
Yes.
I thought you were like 36, so you're like you're a child now. I forgot. You're so young.
It's the beard, man. It's the grayness in the beard and the hair and everything else.
It does do that for all of
us. That makes me seem a lot older than I probably am. But yes, but overall,
all of your SpongeBob memes make you very youthful. Like whenever you do a meme and it's a SpongeBob meme, I'm like, he's younger than me.
Sooner or later, man, it's going to be. That show keeps running. I guess we'll see. They're still
still on?
I think it's still on. They're still using it. They got the voices doing the NFL playoff game from Bikini Bottom, so it still has some clout with the kids, as they say. Anyway,
hard pivot to DC United.
Yeah, hard pivot to DC United, who have been not as interesting. Let's before we get into that, let's talk. I think some interesting news in the world of MLS media. There's been a lot of sort of sad news in my podcast listening. I've been working out a lot more, and I listen to podcasts like a weirdo when I run and do other things. And one of the podcasts that has dropped off has been Extra Time Radio. I don't know if you saw that, John. So that's a show that I have listened to. Did you see this? You heard about this, right?
I heard Extra Time Radio is no longer that I did hear.
It's died a very weird and like its death. It was like I think they did a show like late December, and then I'm like, okay, the holidays, and then I was like, wow, there's no episodes, and then it looks like they're changing some things up based on what I'm seeing. So DC United has, and I only know this because I sometimes still check Twitter, even though because it's the only news source. I'm going to lobby for some certain DC United individuals to get off of Twitter and onto Blue Sky. Like the team, like Mr. Dave Johnson apparently has a podcast. There's been some other sort of DC and team related podcasts. So I think we're trending towards they're kind of pushing the podcast realm to like individual teams and interviews, and
They're encroaching on our turf. We're gonna have to start getting serious. If everyone's gonna have a podcast, we're gonna have to take the brass knuckles back out. We're able to put them away for a while. Now we gotta get lean, fighting shit again.
Gotta get down. But probably also related is that DC and MLS is moving production studios. They're moving to the WWE headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. It's a brand new state of the art facility. I don't follow wrestling, so maybe some other people can like actually tell me like how big of the place this is. But it's interesting in what we've seen about the TV ratings, how poor the MLS Cup TV ratings were, how like poor ratings were sort of across the board. I wonder if this is kind of maybe a little bit of a realization that they need to come up with something different. They need to do something different. They just built that like whole studio in New York, a couple years ago to get this Apple TV thing kicked off. So I don't know.
Put it in a box. They'll just put it in a box and let it bring it down the street to Connecticut.
Yeah.
It's I feel like maybe they'll start doing games inside of cage match games. Maybe maybe there will be like ladders on the sidelines. Listen, it can only be more interesting. So I think this is likely, like I think you probably said, this is mostly just like a technical change. This is consolidation of a company that's trying to still lower costs and expenses for running their own show. And they're probably saying that, like, all the money that we're spending, the way we're doing this is not working. Look at the eyeballs. So, and it's not like people don't use Apple TV for stuff. All my Severance heads know that there's a good reason to be subscribing to that channel. But I think that, so I think too, like they were saying, it's likely that some of the staff were like, I'm not moving to Connecticut. That's why we're not gonna. Extra time is dead because of that alone. We're not going down there. No, thank you. Pass.
Yeah, I think the commute's going to be interesting for some of the people out there. I know Weeby's also been like that. He's been like all over the country. Like he was in New York for a bit to start out, then he went out to Kansas City, and now he's back in New York again. And maybe now he's got to tell the family to move out to Connecticut. I wonder how they will take that. I think it is interesting. I think it did feel like that. While the studio was really nice, it did feel like a little cramped. Like there was only like one thing you could do with it. Like there was like one sort of central studio. If you ever watched the Spanish broadcast, it was very much like smaller than that. Like it was just condensed down to like a TV screen while they were doing it, like a much smaller room. So I wonder if there is an idea of we're going to have more space. We're going to be able to do more with the production of the broadcast. So that part is a little intriguing to me.
It would be funny if you could like see the back of the Spanish announcers like over the shoulder, like because it was so cramped. That like a little phone booth. I mean, I feel like they're able to reutilize sets and stuff. It'll probably be better.
Yeah.
WWE is like, I think they do. Again, I'm sure we actually have like fans that listen to that and like it and stuff. I know that like Raw on Monday nights is on live on Netflix now. So like they've changed a little bit. I think like the age of the big pay-per-view is probably not as big. So I'm curious. Somebody else said, I think on Discord, that it's WWE trying to be the next MLB Advanced Media, who are buying up all the rights, maybe buy NHL rights and stuff. So just consolidation of streaming stuff might be a play here as well.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be it's certainly going to be interesting to watch. I'll be curious to watch if there's any sort of pivot. I think for me, I want bigger, better content when it comes to MLS, and I want I want a weekly like preview show. I want more breakdowns. I want actually like educating some people about the league. I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of that. There was the review show, which was just kind of highlights, but there really wasn't like a lot of discussion. I even felt like in this January camp, I'm listening to podcasts and they're talking about some of the names in MLS, and I'm like, who is this guy? I've like never seen him, never heard of him. So I definitely want more of that. So I'm hopeful that'll be.
I'm happy the guy that washed out of Montreal Impact that got in a fight on a rec team, then went down to Argentina, and then I'm happy he played. I think that's the kind of WWE content that the angle they can bring here.
Just a wild. That was like the most wild entry into January camp I think we'll ever have. And Apparently,
cool.
he didn't really. He got like an assist. I think it was kind of a weird off the shin assist, and then a fairly nice finish. I saw on Reddit it was like credited as a golazo, and I'm like, calm down. That's just it's a nice little finish there.
They're just
So
happy he didn't fight anybody. That's all. There's a question that relates to the lack of fitness here. I'm going to weave it in here. OVD on our Discord says, "Why does this team put out so little content? Is it just that what they do put out gets no engagement? I would love to learn more about all the new faces. Otherwise, it's hard to feel much emotional connection to the team after so many changes." I would agree they're a little light at the moment, having already had an entire leg of the Florida camp and then coming back. I think I know that MLS Media Day was at the start of it, so Benteke was out, and I think probably in LA, and there was a preseason conference I could put on YouTube. Wasn't edited, just was the full thing. Maybe they're just getting their ducks in a row. But I would agree. I feel like this is prime time
mhm.
to do this kind of stuff. To like do sit downs with the new players and figure out who they are and what they're all about. There's enough of them, and we're going to talk through some of them. I agree, OVD. This is it's underwhelming so far.
So some of them who will not be here to start the year, and maybe not for the rest of the year as well. We're already starting with the with the potential season-ending injuries. We did talk about this in the rundown. I almost forgot about this, and then it was brought to my attention. This is I didn't put this on my rundown, but this is the next story I think we have to discuss. DC United finds itself in to start the year in the middle of an injury crisis. Um,
I don't know anything about the season-ending injury potential. Who's this?
Jackson Hopkins, man, he underwent arthroscopic surgery, aggravating an ankle injury that has sidelined him in the last 2 months of the 2024 campaign. I think this is pretty bad. This is like to like refuse like muscles in his leg is what I think is kind of how this has been described. I think I looked up the injury. I think that they put out on the tweet, and it was like yeah, like 2 months, 2 to 3 months, and then it's like you probably shouldn't have any high impact for a year. I am thinking I think this if Jackson Hopkins plays a minute this year, I'll wait and see. Maybe there, again, he is 19, 18, 19. Maybe he heals really quickly, but I think this is this is pretty bad.
I'm more annoyed that it was all late, sort of late on the plate here. Ali, who had conceivably known that Jackson had been hurt last year, obviously, I think they said he re-aggravated it or realized that he needed additional like a revision
Mhm.
after preseason started. But like all we heard was like, Jackson Hopkins, Gabe Perani, Ted Pietro, they're all gonna this is their year. Not looking great. And then it looks like Ted had shoulder surgery,
Mhm.
which the amount of months they're being very vague about what each of these injuries are. Arthroscopic ankle injury or arthroscopic ankle surgery just means the type of incision, and this means they just didn't cut him wide open. So they're not being extremely disclosive about this. I would love to know, did Cudi Pietro have the surgery I had? Did he have a labrum? What was bothering him so much from a shoulder perspective that he couldn't? Did he have a dislocated shoulder? Nothing. We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
We could go to dcunited.com and figure it out, Ted, but I'm told that the information there is slightly outdated.
Yeah, well, it does say Karamoko Wongo, bilateral muscle core surgery, I think from a sports hernia.
Sports hernia, which I made the joke of in a certain era of DC United, there were about 7 or 8 of those in the course of 2 years. It was like something that you caught at RFK. You had a your groin exploded.
Yeah, 3 to 8 weeks or even longer. I would say a couple 2 to 3 months on him. The ankle surgery we'll see with Jackson Hopkins. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I think he's still out for probably most of the year. I would say May, June it would be like a optimistic return time for them, and it's a shame. It's a real shame because this player, particularly Jackson Hopkins, Karamoko is like unfortunate because he was just drafted and like your opportunity to prove yourself is like comes up probably this is the time he would want to come in and prove himself, and unfortunately he is hurt and out, so
It's all right. We're just gonna loan him to the next pro team when he gets back. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We're prepared.
we're prepared, right? MLS next pro team coming about. We did have a preseason game to talk about. which did DC United played off against the New York Red Bulls. We have no streaming. We have no
We had the
vision. We
video
do
highlight of the goal.
what's that?
We had a video highlight of the goal on Facebook.
We did have a video highlight of the goal. Really nice, kind of nicely worked goal.
Yeah.
For the second. That was the second half. First half. Let's go through this first half. Kim Dodson, Bartlett Tubbs, Academy player. Inao, Kojima, Peglo, Pirani, Academy player, and Benteke. As I understand it, the Academy player is a central defender whose name escapes me. And there was a highlight on the New York goal that I think I saw on the New York Twitter, and it looked like possibly Tubbs and this aforementioned Academy player both trying to jump for the ball and maybe both missing it. So not indicative, I think, of what we'll see in the regular season. I think this is a clear body, as I understand it. As Goff has reported, that Kai Rawls is awaiting a visa, so still can't really play or can sort of train on the side. But I don't know if there's really anything we can really glean for this.
No injuries from it, so that's ideal.
It's definitely sort of like a 3-5-2-ish type play. It looks like, or 3. I'm just looking. It's like maybe like possibly like a 3-2-2-1. Honestly, did I do that math right? 3-2-2-1. I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of like a narrow sort of back line. You got your wing backs, with Dotson, I think, playing as kind of more of a left wing back is my guess on this lineup. So interesting, maybe an early sign, or maybe just sort of an indication of who he has sort of in this, who he sort of has in this roster. Inao and Kojima, of course, getting the start with Peglo and Pirani. So I don't know, worth watching as far as what this team might look to do in the upcoming season. So
Reggie Gaynor was one of the Academy players.
yes, and I forget the other guy's name. I'll have to go listen. I believe not. You should also listen to us, but Pitch Pass did a nice little segment. Greg Roach had on Travis Clark and did a really nice segment with him.
Friend of the show, Travis Clark.
Friend of the show, Travis Clark. Second half lineup was Far, a trialist, Academy player, McNaughton, Schnegg, trialist, Liao, Stroud, Merle, and Baji. That's where they got the goal. Doesn't seem Peltola and Herrera will play today, presumably minor ailments or fitness. And I tweeted, presumably, yeah, with a nervous laugh, because I feel like after hearing that, Jackson Hopkins would just be a minor injury, it then became something much larger.
The preseason, if you listen to the preseason press conference, Maddie is being seen as a midfielder exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good for all parties. That's good news.
Yeah. So they went and got the defensive cover, so they don't need him, hopefully, to play defense. But please, everybody, just stay healthy. Anyway, midfielder Brandon Cervania, who returned Toronto FC late last season after recovering from ACL surgery, was among the second half trialists for DC United. So Goff reporting that he is really the only one who's in contention. I think he's also probably the only one in contention because of what just happened with Jackson Hopkins and Karamoko. I'm not sure. Maybe they still sign him. I think they would still need some help there, but definitely expedited things.
He'd be I think off budget player.
Supplemental.
So that's good. We'll take that. They made a big point to say that we have money. We don't want to spend it until the summer. Basically, we're kind of done. They said that before the 2 injuries were announced. Karamoko, I think you kind of just don't think about. I think like that, as far as your roster construction or depth are concerns, that was really just that was a nice to have. That was a feather on the cap if you could have another player and that you could play across the front line. The other ones, though, were kind of central to what you were doing. So I think it probably might make sense to make 2 moves and somebody that you could afford to let go if you needed to later on a roster crunch perspective.
Yeah. Dario Koopa Troop, I think, to this question is, unless Sain said in his press conference a couple days ago, they probably won't be signing anyone else until the summer unless a trial player gets a contract. How does this make you feel with our current roster, with our first game being in less than a month? How do you feel, John?
I feel like the season is long. I feel like it's very long. I feel not excited. I feel like not pumped whatsoever. I don't know if that has to do with the fact that there's no content around the team, that most of the team is new, that we've had these 2 injuries that were supposed to be major players who are going to be out for months at a time.
One major player. You already talked about Karamoko. So
I was talking about
Ted. You talked about Ted Pietro as well. Sure. Yes.
I thought you were
I
supposed to
think
test it
Ted
out
will be
first.
back a little bit quicker. I feel like his was
I
two
hope so.
months, and so we're going to be 1 month into that when the season
Just
starts. So
strap that arm close and just play with one arm. Do what you got to do. But yeah, I'm whelmed. I feel like what we said and what you said specifically on the show in the off season, like this was about making the depth better and bringing the level up, and that's what Allie's saying in interviews. But that's hard to get excited about from like a first game perspective. You're not gonna be like, yeah, well, our depth is a little bit better, so let's
yeah.
go. Let's see how we do. That's a full season perspective thing rather than like I feel real confident. What about you? What's your mood? A
Um,
couple weeks out.
I mean, I'm excited about Kim. I think he is the one player I think I'm most intrigued to see. I think it's interesting he gets the start in the first half. The goal is not his fault. I don't have any details on how else he played, but it seems like they are really, really high on him. And he seems to be like coming in, knowing that he needs to, figure out the language. He needs to learn it, and he need, at least to be able to communicate to his team. And I think that's incredibly positive to hear. That he's not just coming in and just going to rely on his translator and rely on his talent. So I think that is a player to watch if he is the starter for this team. If he is, elevates this team, DC potentially could get a goalkeeper. And sort of the biggest thing they really have is they haven't had like a elite goalkeeper talent since Bill Hamid left and then came back for a bit. And that's been sort of how teams have gotten themselves out of a out of a you look at Philly for years was so bad, and then Andre Blake came in, stepped up, and was an elite goalkeeper talent, and you solve that issue, and then everything else kind of falls into place. You need a player in here to kind of win you games, and so I think expectations should be a little muted with him, but I think he's the one player to sort of be excited about. Everyone else, I think what I've gathered is I look at the transfer fees, the rumored transfer fees that were paid. I look at the salaries. I think there was a bit of a sizable amount of GAM that Ali had to play with, and I think what he said is rather than trying to build this entire roster and make all these like maybe take these big swings, I'm going to sign these players. I think Peglo, I think Kai Rawls, and those are I think the two sort of major signings that took. I think all those signings were paid with GAM. They were not itemized across the contract. They used the GAM to pay them. So theoretically, they become less expensive the next
That's
year.
so boring. That's like
Yeah.
paying off your credit card in full. Like that's the exciting part there is that like you're like next year, like these things won't haunt us. Whatever happens, at least we don't have debt hanging. Well, I've cleared the debt. We have our credit
Mhm.
cards are full. We could go, we could do what we want to do. I mean, that's good. It's like good governance. Like there's nothing exciting or sexy about that at all.
Mhm.
To just and try selling that to casuals. Try selling that to people who aren't super plugged in and aren't MLS freaks, who aren't like thinking about amortized transfer fees over the life of contracts. So good luck, man. I don't envy sort of the selling explaining that in a way that attracts new fans. I mean, we're you know we're who we are, but
I think it's an ultimate thing where results are going to have to do the talking for this team. I think that's pretty much
look at the
that's
Commanders. Well, they look at them. They made it all the way NFL NFC championship game and got completely obliterated, but they made it there and they weren't supposed to. So, the vibes turn around there. Maybe the vibes will turn around here.
I will say the team has said they're going to do the 2-4 the whatever the 2-4 GAM move to get the extra GAM, so they can change that, and they still can. They have not filled that fourth U22 slot. That fourth U22 slot is going to stay open. Yes, they did trade an international slot for 185K in GAM. I think there's some speculation. David Schnegg has an American wife, apparently, from what I've read. That is
Fiance,
Discord.
okay.
Yeah, American fiance. Maybe there's an idea that he will get a green card rather quickly, and then that can free up a roster slot for the summer.
I wouldn't depend on the State Department at the moment.
Yeah,
For
maybe
for
not, maybe not.
turnaround.
But I think there's still a chance for the team. You trade for it. Then maybe you trade for it for a team that maybe thought they were going to use it and can't use it. You can potentially find it. I think what I want to say is that I think depending on how this season goes, I think is how the season looks. If this team is overperforming and they are fourth, fifth, and then suddenly it's like, hey, summer window open, we might have a chance to do something with this. We've got some solid pieces. Let's go and let's start making some of those swings. They might have the grounds to start doing that. So it's gonna. I think this was kind of like let's get too deep at every position, which I think they've done for the most part. We'll fill in holes if we need them, and I think that's what you're seeing with this trialist and the supplemental player. I don't think this team is going to enter games with like 3 substitutions. I don't predict that's going to be a thing. 3 field substitutions, I should say. I think they're going to have their full complement of subs this year.
It's very funny that's like our bar. We're like, listen, we're gonna have full rosters. Say what you will, but we'll
I
have
mean,
18
it is,
players.
it is. And anyway, Mr. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Maglue. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's related. Mr. Maglue says, saw the same press conference about Kim's first preseason match. What's the consensus on a goalkeeper not speaking the primary language of the defenders? How big of a liability is that so far as organization? More general follow-up in case anyone knows, is there a tendency to teach defenders basic form words like left, right, etc. in phrases to keep goalkeeper directions and instructions? It's not uncommon at all that members of the backline and the goalkeeper do not speak the same language, but everyone speaks a couple words in Spanish. Everyone speaks a couple words in English. Apparently, Kim is already he has an interpreter and someone that helps him settle in the club, but also he's been really, really aggressive with learning English and sort of figuring that out, getting to know his defenders. I'm not concerned about that at all. There are only so many things you need to. He could do Duolingo like me for a little while and get his directions down, get his speed questions down, and he'll be fine. I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that the team. I think rumors were the team was actually looking for a South Korean midfielder, 24, and they apparently couldn't get close on evaluation, and he's going to Minnesota. But I think it's good that they've spent the money to bring in sort of someone to help him adjust. I think that's a good call.
Yep.
Give him some avenue to talk, and I think it's positive to hear that he wants to really dive in and try to learn the language.
Well, I'm going to talk. I'll read it while you sort that out. If anyone, for the folks that are streaming, can't believe I'm saying this about the reigning Golden Boot winner, but is there any concern that Benteke stifles Troy and Alley's overall vision on how they want the club to play? First, he's old enough that he won't likely be around when the fruits of our teardown and rebuild hopefully come to fruition. I'm sure he's a tremendous leader and locker room guy, which is worth something to be sure. But when you have a guy whose particular set of skills basically force you to play a certain way, is it possible that his presence is ultimately hurting the overall development of the team's future identity and style of play? TLDR, what is the team's identity without Benteke? What will it be when he's gone? I would direct you first and foremost to a goal.com article that talks about Benteke, talks about his extension, talks about he and Troy's relationship and sort of where he sees himself in the broader scheme and project of the thing. I will say the one thing that I agree with you on is that he is unlikely to be here when the full thing comes to fruition because he is older. But we said this before. We used to say this a lot more when the team was in a more dire strait. When you have a player that is exceptional and other teams would play, DC United does not have the luxury to toss those players out and say we don't need them. We'll figure something else out. If you have a guy that has a like world shaping generational advantage through his play in the air, you figure out around that. What is a team's identity without him? I don't know. We're gonna have to figure that out. We don't. We. The answer, if you ask Troy has an answer. If you ask Troy the question of that, it will talk about the fact that the team led the league in high pressing, like the number of presses. That they're going to be a team that can turn the ball over and move quickly, hopefully generate chances from different parts of the field. I am, you're not the only person to say this. I've seen this all over Discord. I've seen this on the internet, basically being like, all we ever do is hit the ball to him and hope it works out. Yeah, that is mostly that is a lot of what we did. I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing because he converted more than anybody else did. So if again this year if he regresses, and he likely will, based on the fact that he was the best there was last year and he's a year older. That's why they signed these other attacking players. That's why Randall Leal is here. That's why Joe Alpelo is here. The hope that you could create more chances and more opportunities to finish with different players. Hopefully, Dominic Baji can score. Hopefully, Muro can take that next step. So I am unconcerned about Benteke. I think we should be so lucky to have him, and I don't think that he is against what Troy would like to be doing. I think that they're more than happy to have a Golden Boot winner, and if they didn't have him, they wouldn't then have something better. I don't think no one's being blocked by him.
I think there's a non-zero. I mean, he was able to keep himself incredibly healthy last year. He had one sort of minor injury. I think he took a game off, and then he was pretty much back and ready to play. And I think there's a non-zero chance that he is able to come and be a part of this team. When hopefully, I think right now we're looking at coming to full fruition next season as sort of going to be the full version of this team, with the players they've signed. If, when the ones that hit will stick around, and, they will basically keep building sort of on top of that. And I think that's kind of what this year is becoming. I think
the article I mentioned is literally called "Why is DC United Building Around Christian Benteke" on goal.com. So check that out.
Yeah.
Recommend.
Yeah. I think it's still I think you're right. I think you're right about, you win the Golden Boot. You're not just suddenly going to be like, okay, bye. Thanks. Thanks. See you later. I think it was.
Did that happen with Ola Kamara? Was he gone the next year? He tied for the.
I think he tied for the Golden Boot. Yeah, and then he was definitely gone for the next year. But a player like that, with how dominant he was, I think the idea this year will certainly be that other players step up. There's not, we don't have Benteke with 10 goals, and then the running joke is who's going to be the first player to score 2 goals on the season. I think that the hope is that there is enough around him. I will also say, with regards to this season, I think there's a lot of gambling that Ali is putting on Troy to do what he did last year, which he was able to take a team through preseason, get them to say, this is our identity, this is how we're going to play. And that can be very effective. If you are a team that can go in and know how you're going to play, that can be very effective. We saw it early on last year where they were able to break down and beat teams that didn't have a good idea of what they wanted to be, that were still figuring it out, so to speak. So I think that is something to consider when talking about Ali and what he's maybe able to do early in the year. And I mean, if this team did not have the run where they had all those injuries and players missing and everything, this is a team that would have probably made the playoffs. They just needed like a couple more points to sneak into that 9 spot. So I don't know. I think that's sort of the bet here is that, yes, the players we bring in aren't exciting, but there is an idea that Troy can sort of elevate them just like he did last year, and make them sort of better than sort of the better as a whole than sort of individually. All right. We got more questions. I think we always start with the Blue Sky ones. We're over on Blue Sky, by the way, if you're just now checking back in.
That may be the only place we are. I think I may have given up on Threads. So I think the only place we are is Blue Sky now. And I guess Facebook, but not really.
I still stand. M Stan says, any more incomings? I think we've already discussed that. Says Brendan Cartwright says, it seems most of the incoming players and several returners are intriguing possibilities, but far from sure things. So how lucky are you feeling that the majority of these moves work out versus don't?
I mean, my dog died this week, so I'm not a super optimistic guy. So maybe don't ask me this week. I would say I'm probably a little bit more cloudy sky. I feel like I'm maybe more in the Brendan camp. He's been feeling pretty down, I think, about the team's chances the last couple weeks with the injury news and stuff. But 50. If you hope for 50% of them, maybe that would get us at least where we were.
50% would be great. 50% would be.
I mean, he hit. If you look at his signings last year, new guys in, he hit 75% of them.
Yeah, and some of them, I think the jury's still. I think some of them you really have to judge. We didn't really see Schnegg a whole lot. I know you're not really high on Borussia.
I'm not.
Borussia now. I'm still high on Matty Pettila. I thought there were some good things there. So I think there's still some players out there that are ready to hit. I think I do appreciate a little bit of a calmness with this team. I know it's not exciting. I know it's not this, but it feels deliberate. And I think that is the idea, is like there's very deliberate moves that that Allie's making and that Troy is making to sort of build a more solid foundation, and not trying to wing this thing like first overall and trying to go, win a trophy and just deal with the consequences later. Even with Benteke there, he's like, nope, I'm gonna stick to my plan. My plan was to, Benteke winning the Golden Boot. Maybe it was like a nice little,
Probably not predicted.
Probably not predicted. I think he had all intentions of letting Benteke go and maybe grabbing another DP, maybe a DP in the winter.
According to this article on goal.com, they wanted him to sign an extension from the beginning of the year, and Benteke actually told him, I'm not ready to sign yet. I'm not sure about this. I want to see where things go. And then mid-season, when he had like 7 or 8 goals, he's like, actually, I think I'm good. I think we can re-sign him. I think it's good now. The only thing I'm concerned about Benteke, and you can take his quote how you want to take it. The quote, everybody saw the quote that he was like, we got a bunch of new players. I have no idea who they are. Hopefully they're good. They're all very young. That's all I can say about them. Not the most. I'm sure the media folks are like, we need to talk to Chris about some talking points here. I feel like maybe that was not the message we were trying to send, but he can do what he wants to do, I guess.
At the end of the day, he's the highest paid player on the team, so he can probably do whatever he wants. So it seems to me maybe he's trusting. He's like, well, I trust Troy, and we'll make this work. And
if not, I'll see you. This is my last year. I'll see you guys later. Yeah. He's a under guaranteed for 25, and that's it,
an option as an option for 2026. So hopefully there's no little like,
if he plays 15 seconds, he gets a 7-year extension guaranteed.
Hopefully there's nothing like that. Interesting question from Hoya's DCU says, any indication Knaus is on trial with another team? I have not heard anything about what his status is.
He's part of like I think he's like a part owner of like a training, like a soccer training thing. I think
this might be maybe if a call comes down the line, I think he might be hanging the boots up, gonna be a realtor out in Northern Virginia.
Steve, hire him at DC Power. Just get the whole game. Bills around.
We forgot to mention Steve Birnbaum hiring as the director of, I guess, the
GM and director of soccer operations, I believe.
At interesting. We still probably will not cover the DC Power. I think our limit is high and wide. We'll definitely check in now and then. And if they pull it together, because things have not been going well this year. So
if they get good, certainly more possible.
Yeah.
It's a carrot dangling over Steve's head. Steve, make the team interesting somehow.
Brandon Zibran says, do you think Troy had all the info regarding Hopkins' injuries at his press conference, or you think he was keeping the bad news to himself?
I don't know.
I think there was thought.
I wouldn't blame him if he was.
I think there was thought that like things would get better, and maybe he steps out on the training field and it's like, nope, this like maybe it feels good for a little bit, and then after training one day he's like, look, it still doesn't feel good, something's wrong, and then they actually take him to the doctor and like get a scan done on it, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna need surgery here. So pain can be a tricky thing too. Like it can be like, maybe this was like, let's see if it gets better. Maybe it's close to returning, and then it's like, nope, it still hurts, and so it's like, all right, we have this surgery that we think is gonna fix it. So
I love that he's Fredericksburg's own. I'm not gonna say anything about I believe he still trains with the local like sports performance guy. Jackson, stop doing that. Go up 95 a bit. Go find somebody else. Let's train with somebody else. Clearly, the medical side did not benefit you here this year. I would like to see you back on the field. I remember when he was a winger.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when he was a 10? Man, those are the days. Scoring, he never scored, but he certainly shot the ball a lot. I did appreciate that about him.
RGN DC, a few decent MLS free agents who are still available. Do you think DC dip into that pool considering the injuries?
Who's left? Who's headlining that group?
I don't think it's definitely not. I think we're definitely in the guys that are on trial. A lot of the international ones too, I believe, left. I was curious about there was one free agent I was curious about, and I talk about him a lot. And I was gonna look up who it was if I could find his name. Tim something. Yeah,
I wish it
this
was
is not.
Tim
This is
Green.
not. This is not. This is not good radio. I should
No, it's
just.
good.
I should. I should.
Good.
I
We should
should. I should be like.
keep
Is
Googling.
Andrew Farrell still potentially, or did he? I think he might have re-signed. As Xavier Arriaga was one guy I was like, maybe we can convince him, but I think he went down. Um, he went down to.
I think Jonathan Lewis is a player we should sign just because I've been talking about him for 4 or 5
If
years.
we sign Jonathan Lewis, John will
I
literally be
will.
over the moon.
It fills the Jackson Hopkins hole in my heart that I've lost as he's been injured. I think they do that for me.
Tim Parker was one of the guys I was thinking maybe we would do that. I'm not sure if he is still around or if he's still waiting for a type of move, but he would have been I think a solid pickup. But I do not know what his status is, so I don't know.
Nathan Crockford signed for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't. I think they're going to start at least the first couple games. I think the window is still open till like March, April. So they're going to have a few games to get a run out, and I think it might be a case where they're just like, let's see how this first goes. If this is like really bad to start off, then yeah, maybe we do, go out and grab some pieces to try to make this thing better. I don't know. It's interesting to see. They did not dip into the free agent market like I thought they would. I was fully projecting them to do so, and they did not do that. So
was Dotson a free
agent?
Dotson
was a free agent. Yep. He was one of the few free agents. All right. I think that is going to do it for DC. I don't think there's anything else you want to discuss, John, or are we?
No, I think we're in a watch and wait here. There's still not going to be any preseason games, so the first time you'll see them do anything is going to be the opener in a month.
Oh no. Well, there might be. Who knows? Maybe Charlotte will broadcast it, or there'll be some sort of broadcast. You never know, John.
Who did Charlotte just sign? The forward Wilfried Zaha.
Yeah, Charlotte.
They just signed him.
Sorry, I meant to say Charleston. Charleston might. Maybe they will. Maybe they will be media focused. We'll see Zamudio out there for Charleston.
Yeah, probably will. Oh, we weren't saying we were going to talk about player moves, but I think one that is notable is Atlanta United signing back Miguel Almiron.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of cool that he's back. I mean, not good for us, but certainly cool.
Not good
for the league.
Not good for us. Let's talk about the potential NWSL 2025 championship contenders in the Washington Spirit. Let's not talk about the other more exciting moves that other MLS teams are making.
Right. Well, do we want to talk about the team that's going to fight and scrap for 9th, or do we want to talk about the team that finished second and might go for first right now? Let's do the second thing.
Might go first. Preseason rosters came out. Kaylee Collins, Aubrey Kingsbury, Sandy McIver signed as an international. Kind of a surprising signing.
Yeah, out of Man City, played 3 times for Man City, 5 times for Scotland. Maybe like a long-term project. I believe she's on a kind of a longer-term deal. There's been no real good Aubrey Kingsbury succession plan, so maybe they're starting to try to figure that out. The weird part is it taking an international spot. I think that's weird, but that's okay. Normally you do not spend an international slot on a backup goalkeeper, typically in roster construction in a constrained environment. But they obviously see something like they played a transfer fee for him. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Tamara Bolt, Gabby Carl, Casey Kruger, Tara Mickione, Paige Mateer, Esme Morgan, and Kate Wiesner. No real surprises there.
The only surprise is Bolt being listed as a defender. She was a forward at her club team in Brazil. So interesting. Maybe we're doing a Mickione. I don't know. Mickione also signed a contract extension in the offseason, I think, for another 3 years or something crazy. Like she's the longest contracted player for the Spirit, which is smart because she's getting U.S. national team attention now. And also she was Iron Woman and one of the best players on the team last year. So good for the team for locking her up, and also good on Mark Parsons for converting her 2 years ago.
And building on top of that, Deborah Abadun, Croy Bethune, who's hitting up on the TikTok lives I've seen. I followed her because she posted videos, and now she's going live consistently. Courtney Brown, Hal Hirschfeld, Narumi Miura, McKenna Morris, Chloe Ricketts, Lacey Santos, Heather Steinbrook, Andy Sullivan. I'll be curious to see how Andy comes back. She picked up a nasty injury. I think expect her to be out most of probably at least the beginning of the season.
All the players that are on season-ending injury designation, which are quite a few of them, are eligible to return at any time. So there's that as far as roster construction. Miura is basically intended to be an Andy Sullivan fill for as long as we need. And also, once Andy comes back, really quality depth that we have not had since Jordan Baggett from 3 or 4 seasons ago. So, like that.
I expect Croy Bethune. I think Croy Bethune's probably considering the timing of her injury. I would expect her to be getting back to full fitness and hopefully starting once the season kicks off.
First day at NIMG was today. I bet she's probably training on the side
Mhm.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's good. No rush here. Season's long here too.
Forwards: Emma Gaines Ramos, Ashley Hatch, Rosemead Kouassi, Brittany Radcliffe, Trinity Rodman, and Oleon Sar. Again, also on season-ending injury list. So a lot of like talent on season-ending injury list, but still something worth watching. And some news about Trinity Rodman that came out, which I'll talk about a bit. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on the players?
Well, there's a media availability tomorrow. Of course, I have another job that actually pays me, so I don't think that I'll be. I could be on it. Who knows? But I would be really interested to hear and follow all of the good guys who cover this team for updates tomorrow. But I bet you we're going to get a lot of injury updates and figure out where. I'm very curious where Sar is in her recovery. We never really got a real picture of what it was, and the offseason wasn't that long. So if it was serious, then who knows? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's ready to go now. I think that Croy is a question mark. Where they're at there. I think this team from a roster construction is done in my mind. They signed 2 players out of what would have been the draft. Signed depth at defensive midfield, which is needed for the short term. You're assuming all of your attackers are back. I think you're kind of in a good spot. The one point of concern is the rumor that came out this week that originally was just mentioned in an Instagram live, I think, and Trinity dismissed it, but now it's getting the full media attention here. Not sure if there's more data there or just whatever, but go ahead.
I think it's so it's Tom Bogart reporting that Chelsea and Arsenal are watching, just keeping tabs on
I also watch Trinity and keep
tabs on Trinity Rodman. I have speculated. I wonder if this means. I think NWSL needs to start taking this very seriously. We just had a $1.1 million transfer out of the NWSL to Chelsea. I think there is going to be eventually women's soccer is growing across the world. And right now, the salary cap, while it's gotten better for NWSL, it's gotten pretty small. I think we are nearing the potential where we're going to see like a designated player type situation for the NWSL, possibly Trinity Rodman, maybe a Rodman rule type situation where you can pay 1, 2 player, 3 players, like whatever you want. The mad dash we will see on some of that will be interesting. But I don't know. It's worth paying attention to.
This came up when Sam Kerr was leaving, and they tried to keep her. So I'm not sure what the current roster rule situation is for that, but at that time there was a bit of a Calvin Ball situation, like whatever we need to do, just offer her whatever you want, and we'll make it compliant. So to your point about a Rodman rule, Michelle King should not get outspent here. So if it's about, I don't think she wants her to leave.
No.
I don't think Trinity necessarily wants to go. I think she probably wants to feel appreciated, and she probably wants to be one of the highest paid players in the league, if not the highest paid player in the league. She's not now. She was at the time she signed it. She was one of the first players to sign $1 million a year deal, but it's since been eclipsed, I think, 2 or 3 times. So at the very least, putting her back in that conversation needs to happen. But I'm not super concerned about it. I think there was a question on our Discord about like what's our level of concern about it, and currently it's low.
Yeah.
Because again, this is not DC United not having enough money to compete with, like, Michelle King can. Naomi Gurmo was only $1 million for Chelsea, or 1.1. That's in the couch cushions for Michelle based on what she spends on other things.
Yeah. I think to that point right now, concern is low. I think she's also playing the game of, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to sign a contract now. even if one's in front of me, I'm going to wait and see what else is happening around me because, she signed that contract and, at the time, like you said, it was the richest contract and it's been eclipsed. So clearly there's an upward trajectory on salary. So why sign it now, even if it is the richest contract, and then watch it get eclipsed, by the end of the season. So I think it will be a little bit of a question, within the 6 months, I expect them to have something on the table. There'll be some offer. And as long as it's good enough, I see no reason why she will not be the highest paid player. I think they'll do the same sort of thing where they'll be like, look, just pay her whatever you want. We want her on here. We'll figure out the rest later. So
Trinity Raman, represented by Octagon Sports, one of the larger sports. Mike Sinkowski is her agent. And at the time when this contract extension was for 24 with an option for 25, it was worth more than 1.1 million, which was the most. So it is time. It's time to pay the woman and give her the raise she so richly deserves. Also, would love to see her healthy, fully 100% healthy and back to ripping it too.
Yeah.
And for whatever your concern is about Trinity, at least you're not a Chicago Red Stars fan or just Stars fan. Didn't they change their name?
Yes.
They're no longer the Red Stars because communism or something. But Mal Swanson is not reporting to the team for personal reasons and is not going to be in camp for who knows how long. So at least, I hope everything's okay with her. But like, as far as a team, if there's a team that's needed a player like more than anything else, might be her. DC, the Spirit need Trinity, and Chicago needs Mal Swanson. So I hope at least the Spirit are more like a predictive dread situation rather than an actual current dread situation.
Yeah. I think that's going to do it. I don't think we have any other major news that we wanted to cover. I guess so I think we're going to start coming back to your regularly scheduled shows. We're going to have a ramp up to the season. So expect shows to come out in the week leading up to the season. I had planned more. I think I'm going to retool it. I'm going to actually do some planning. We're going to have some organized preview shows. We're going to talk about the roster, talk about other things, maybe give some predictions of ourselves. I don't know. We'll kick some things around, but be on the lookout. More content coming your way. Also, maybe look out for us. I don't know. There are a lot of other MLS podcasts I see. You might hear us pop up on one of those. We just have to get asked. So it's a call out.
That's when the DM. Well, here's the thing: we're not on Twitter anymore. So like, where are the DMs going to come from? Where we get like 17 of them in the next 3 weeks, where you and I are paper rock scissoring to see who covers.
We'll see
all.
what happens, man. I mean, people still know how to reach out. So
it's true. I did notice there was I saw 2 or 3 different surveys of MLS, like who you should listen to, and it's funny. We've been doing this so long now. I'm still excited to see us put somewhere we did not put ourselves. I remember when MLS, the MLS Soccer did one like 4 or 5 years ago. I still have the video on my phone where I was scrolling through and seeing us mentioned as like one of the DC United podcasts. So thanks to anybody who. We're apparently going to have a lot more competition this year. So we'll have not competition. We'll have some other friends to options for you to listen. There might be more podcasts for DC United than there are beat writers that cover DC United for paid outlets. I think that might be true.
And we'll look to do some I'm still looking to do some written content. I just need to get excited and need to have a topic that interests me. So anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Vamos.